everybody. Welcome to our podcast. My name is Samantha, the Secretary of AAMHA.
And I'm Jackie. I am your events coordinator for AAMHA.
Mhm. And today, our topic will be about the suppression of feelings. So, one may ask, what is a suppression of feeling? Suppression of feeling is the act of stopping yourself from expressing your true feelings. You're usually trying to make an uncomfortable or difficult situation more manageable. And this is usually a huge problem in the APITA community because instead of seeking help, many just ignore it. So bottling it up can just lead to a lot of dangerous factors such as an emotional imbalance. And there's a article from the National Alliance on Mental Illness. It's called "Why Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders Don't Go to Therapy." And there's four situations that the PETA community faces that leads them to not go to therapy.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about most of these, share our own experiences on them. And yeah, so the first one is I must be successful and cannot show signs of weakness. And according to the SAMHSA, the Asian American Pacific Islanders are less likely to reach out for help than other races and ethnic groups. This may be due to faith and religious beliefs, cultural values, and language barriers, to name a few. This kind of results in the stereotype of the model minority. If you kind of think about it, the whole stereotype of Asians must be succeeding. It's kind of high up there. Like all Asians have, great grades and they're all great at music and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the PETA community will also face with whatever challenges as long as they become successful.
Yeah. So they're basically trying to do like I guess in a way they can't show any weakness to anybody else because they need to prove to others, oh, I can do this. But really deep down, all of us do have a weakness and you know, sometimes we do need the help, but we just don't show it.
Mm-hmm. I actually had a
Um,
friend in high school. I will keep her name a secret. But
mhm.
they, I feel like a lot of people like really looked up to her because they were like honestly like the model Asian air quotes that a lot of people wanted to be. Like they're really good at the musical instruments. They're really smart, like literally like straight A's, like 4.0 GPA. I think they had like above a 4.0. And like, you know, all the teachers loved her and stuff, but eventually it did catch up to her mental health. And from what I have heard from my other friends who, were close to her, it did take a heavy mental toll on her to where it kind of like it affected her like physically.
Mm,
So, she because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. She had a lot of friends that
mm,
looked up to her. She had a lot of like underclassmen that looked up to her, and if you know people, if she like kind of failed at something or didn't do well in something, a lot of people would be like, "Oh, the great blank does not do well at this." Like, wow. It's kind of like that
mm.
underlying jab that they got
Yeah.
from the from not being able to do well and meeting other people's expectations. It
Yeah, definitely.
it
Yeah.
can really it affects people.
Yeah. No, yeah, I definitely went through something like that in high school because I was one of the only Asian kids in high school, so I kind of felt like, oh, Asians are smart. Like I have to be like that. And so I try to do well in everything, but really I sucked at some of the classes, but I just never wanted to show people. I would work really hard and like your friend, it physically like ugh, it was something for sure. But now we've talked about it and you don't have to be like that.
hmm
It's okay to reach out for help.
And I feel like another
Um,
big contributor to all this is like our parents too. You know,
oh, definitely.
like my grandma, who's like all the way in Korea, is like, "Oh, you gotta be successful. You gotta marry a rich guy, or like marry a good guy.
Yeah,
Make a lot of
definitely.
money. You know,
Something
have
we've
that.
been told since we're
Yeah.
young, you have to be like this. You have to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever. It's and
hmm
it kind of makes us have they expect a lot from us and we can't always please them.
And I'm not saying that other ethnicities don't face the same. We're just kind of like talking about our own experiences and what we kind of see within our own Asian and Pacific Islander community. That just want to put
Mhm.
that out there.
Yes.
But yeah, my mom and my dad especially, like they were very. I can tell that they were disappointed when I told them that I wanted to be an animal science major. Um, and when they're like, "Oh, you want to be a vet?" I'm like, "No, I kind of don't want to do that." And the disappointment was, kind of it
Um,
was very prevalent because being a veterinarian, that's more successful than you know researching on animal behavior, which is something that I
yeah,
want to do. But
yeah.
yeah, a lot of the disappointment that we kind of expect, that's the sign of that's our biggest weakness, I guess, disappointment. So
And there's another situation that leads to why many people in the PETA community not going to therapy. It's a burden to share my emotions. So being too emotional, you people tend to, I guess, think you're more of someone who just complains a lot and doesn't try to solve anything for themselves. Um, and personally, this is something I experience a lot because sometimes I'll like talk to my mom saying, "Oh, I'm really stressed out and stuff." But then she's like, "Samantha, you're always going to go through things in life that's hard." And it just kind of seems like, "Oh, now she thinks like I'm just complaining." But really it's like, I'm just struggling and it can
mhm.
be hard sometimes.
I I definitely agree with this one. I kind of like I felt this like way too much in my life where it's gotten to the point where I barely share my emotions even to like my friends.
Mhm.
But it's like as a kid, I never really shared like, what my emotions were as a child because it's like if I cry, I get, punished for it saying like, "Oh, why are you crying? Like is there a happy moment going on?" when, I'm crying because I'm upset. And
Mhm.
so, um, definitely growing up, it was hard to share my emotions. And for the most part, on the outside, people think that I'm like pretty happy. Um, and when like I show any emotion, it's like a severe drop,
Mhm.
because like a happy-go-lucky girl, all of a sudden talks about like the dark, not dark, but like the depressing sides of her. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, this contrast between who she usually is and like, you know, what we're seeing now.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of the times that when I do share, it's like I'm bringing the mood of my friend group down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Yeah.
Yeah. And like even if it's like a one-on-one, like it's if I have to share one-on-one, I have to like tell them beforehand, "Hey, can I talk to you? I'm feeling a really down." Like I have to like prepare them. I feel like it's like a necessity for me to prepare the other person that I'm going to be talking about sad things,
Mhm.
to like, like emotionally like prepare themselves. So yeah, I feel like a burden a lot. And even now I struggle with this because know, my mom's always like, "Oh,
Mm.
you can talk to me whenever whenever you're sad," and I'm like, "Well,
Okay.
I never learned how to do that."
Yeah, it can be hard. Yeah.
hmm but not only like sharing the emotions. A lot of APITA, a lot of people in the APITA community, have like this stigma that they're ungrateful for what they got. Um, a lot of their family members, they learn about like their past family sacrifices, um,
Mhm.
because that they left their home country to come to America for a better life. And with this in mind, there's like a belief among the younger generations that their elders experienced have their elders have experienced more hardships than what
Yeah.
kids who grew up in America have.
Yeah. Like the other day, I was calling my mom and I was saying, "Oh, like I've been well, like so far like this semester it's not, hasn't been that bad for me, but she was like, "Yeah, Samantha, you can't always like complain and stuff because when I was your age, I was living in New York City by myself, working like, part-time jobs and stuff. So you have it easy." And and it's like, "Oh, I feel like I guess sometimes guilty, like I have to experience like struggles in school when my mom had like to basically, I don't know, like work hard to get where we are today, you know? And it sometimes feels like I can't really like share that with her because it's like what she's done is like so much, harder than what I've ever been through.
Mhm. Because it's like, our parents came from Korea. They literally
Mhm.
left everything and everyone that they knew. Came to an unknown country with probably little to no pocket change. Um, had to get a job and like learn like a language that they didn't really know. Um, and yeah, like I can definitely see how that's a hardship, and I don't think parents really mean it, but they do invalidate our feelings of stress and you know struggles that we kids go through as like Asian Americans, and they don't mean it like they don't do it on purpose, of course not, because they
Yeah,
love
because like
us.
what they did, like it's just for us to have a better life so we don't have to go
Hmm.
through what they went through,
Yeah,
you know. We'll always like face something like, like different from them, like
yeah. It's like
yeah.
a I feel a lot of this is just more like a generational and cultural
Mhm.
differences that
Yeah.
both sides have like experienced.
Mhm.
We the kids, the first or the no we'd be like the second generation or first gen. Well, depending on
Well,
what
yeah, what gen you are. Yeah,
yeah,
like
depending on what generation you were, it's all gonna be different. My
mhm.
parents, they came straight from the motherland to America, so
Yeah.
yeah, they definitely struggled, and they definitely tell me, they repeatedly tell me, every once in a while, remember I came from Korea just so that you can have a
Mm.
better life, and so you need to do well, you need to be successful so you can take care of me when I'm old and stuff. I don't know if your mom has told you that, but my mom expects me
Oh,
to like
yeah, definitely.
she expects me to like take care of her like in her retirement years.
Oh, yeah,
Which yeah,
my mom too.
like financially, like if I can't financially like it's a thing. It's a thing. Um,
And the last one, is disrespectful to my spiritual beliefs. So basically, this one is where faith plays a major role in many a PETA in the PETA community. Um, for me, I come from a Christian household, so this is something that kind of affects me a lot because there's a lot of things where like mental health is a sin. It's like you're not supposed to have it because it's sinful. And I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but it's definitely something I go through a lot.
I definitely have gone through this whole thing. I too have grown up in a very Christian background. Um, Not so much anymore. We're kind of like relaxed about it. However, um, yeah, not gonna lie. Anytime there's like a news about like a suicide, a lot of people, get like kind of mad and say that it's like, you know, bad and like sinful and stuff. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. And like we don't want to like, disrespect any religions or stuff, but it is something that needs to be brought upon, like mental illness in a religious, in the religious community.
hmm
But yeah.
a lot of it just
Um,
kind of comes around like, the devil is, whispering all these in your ear. You gotta like ignore it and, turn to God and yada yada yada.
mhm.
Um, so it's something that, you know, that is
Like
like in the back of your head, like I don't want to disappoint, my
yeah.
family, don't want to disappoint, like my God, if you do worship one. And
And yeah, like my family definitely tells me like sometimes if I'm like stressed or something, or like I'm just not feeling well, my parents will just be like, "Oh, make sure you pray," and then it'll go away. It's
oh
like
yeah, 100%.
it's not that simple. It's like you can't just pray it away,
I
I
don't
guess.
think the amount of times that my youth pastor would say that depression can go away if you just pray about it, like, oh my God, the amount of times I've been told that, it's it's kind of sad. It's really really sad.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do think that, if you are struggling with it, like unhappy thoughts and suicidal thoughts, that do you should go to therapy for it.
Mhm. You should
Because there are
definitely
people
have someone you can talk to, like,
definitely.
about. And I think, like, the stigma, like, about, in the PETA community, about going to therapy just, like, needs to end, It's like, it's okay
Yeah,
to go to therapy. There's nothing wrong with that.
a lot of I feel like you know, a lot of issues that come around, like, having their parents take their kids to therapy. It's like, wow, my kid's weak.
Mhm.
It's too much. Why am I, spending money for my kid to talk to a person when they can just talk to me? But when they talk to the parents, they're like, oh, why you shouldn't be struggling? Like, I've struggled so much more than you.
Mhm.
That kind of issue arises. I
Mhm.
have heard like happier stories where the parents finally come around and like understand that this is like a serious thing,
Mhm.
and that that they're getting the help that they need for the kids. So I've heard stories like that, but I've also heard and experienced situations where the person thought that they had no one else to turn to, and had to resort to other means, which is
Yeah.
ultimately is very very sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, just know that you're not alone in this. There are many many people out there that that are suffering the same as you. So just reach out to someone. They can listen, they can help you out. By any means, they are not a professional. They're just kind of like a temporary means until you do find professional help.
Mhm.
But for anyone listening and you guys need someone to talk to, my DMs are open. And
Mine too.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like, our advice of the day is, it's okay to talk about, like, how you're feeling. Even if it's, like, you know, you don't think it's a big deal, like, just talk about it.
hmm
Don't, like, suppress it in, like, or bottle it up, you know?
I feel
It's
like
healthy.
yeah, and I know that I don't know if there's a lot of gamers out here, but there is a gamer named Lily Pichu. He always asks her friends like, "How was your day? Like, let's talk about feelings. Like, how have you been?" Um,
Mhm.
so if you guys have like a group of friends and ask that question and be like, "Hey, how was your day? Like, let's talk about feelings. How are you doing mentally?" That can honestly help someone and change their mind on something that they've been going through. You never know.
Mhm.
You could be that hand that reaches out in their darkness.
Mm.
But yeah, Sam, do you want to give the resources that they can turn to?
Um, well, there's, you can always go to therapy. We've, addressed that. Um, let's see.
It's a temporary mean, but there is the suicide hotline if
Yeah.
you know you are looking into doing so. I will also say that your parents might be like one of your weaknesses, but they can also be like your greatest strengths.
Mhm.
Um, if you guys are able to try to really sit down and you know, talk with anybody and let them know like how serious it is.
Mhm.
'Cause therapy is something that people should go to. And suppressing feelings can definitely lead to unhealthy things, especially if you end up exploding. Um,
Exactly.
which has happened to me plenty of times. Um, but I'm getting better at it. So
Well, I think this wraps it up.
I
Thank
think so
you
too.
for thank you for listening in.
Yes, and tune in to our next podcast. We're trying to get better at this, so bear with us. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye.